The massive space station hung in the void between three moons like a metal city built among the stars. The Galactic Defense Academy stretched for miles, in every direction with gleaming towers and training facilities that could house 50,000 cadets from across the known galaxy. Ships arrived daily bringing young warriors from hundreds of different worlds, all hoping to earn their place among the elite forces that protected civilized space. Lieutenant Commander Jake Martinez walked through the main corridor watching streams of alien cadets hurry to their morning classes. Tall, blue-skinned Andromedans moved with fluid grace while stocky rock-like granite folk stomped past, making the deck plates vibrate under their massive feet. Winged aerial corps cadets from the gas giant Nimbus Prime glided overhead using the high-ceiling pathways designed for their species. Each race brought their own strengths and their own pride to the academy. Jake had been running the hand-to-hand combat program for 8 years, and he knew every species had something valuable to offer. The key was getting them to work together instead of constantly trying to prove who was strongest or fastest or smartest. That was the real challenge of training the next generation of galactic defenders. The combat training facility occupied an entire section of the academy with multiple arena floors and specialized equipment designed to handle the diverse needs of different alien physiologies. Some species needed low-gravity environments while others required high-pressure chambers. The medical bay stayed busy treating training injuries, though serious accidents were rare thanks to careful safety protocols. Jake entered his office and pulled up the roster for today's advanced combat class. 43 cadets from 21 different species, all in their final year of training. Most had been here for 3 years, learning everything from starship operations to diplomatic protocol, but the combat program remained the most challenging part of their education. His eyes stopped on one name that always made him pause. Katie Sullivan from Earth. She had arrived 2 years ago as part of the small human delegation to the academy. Most instructors barely noticed the human cadets since they seemed so ordinary compared to their alien classmates. Humans were not particularly strong or fast or tough by galactic standards. They had no natural weapons like claws or fangs, and their homeworld was considered a minor player in galactic politics. But Jake had noticed something different about Katie during her first combat evaluation. While other cadets tried to overpower their opponents with brute force, she moved with calculated precision. Her technique was flawless, and she never wasted energy on unnecessary movements. She reminded him of the combat instructors from his own military training back on New Texas. The door chimed, and Jake looked up to see Zixthara entering his office. The 7-foot sword warrior had to duck slightly to clear the doorframe. His reptilian features were set in their usual expression of barely controlled arrogance, and his scaled hide gleamed under the office lighting. Like most of his species, Zixthara believed the Sword Imperium produced the galaxy's finest warriors. Instructor Martinez, I request a schedule change for today's sparring rotation, Zixthara said in his deep, gravelly voice. The pairing system has matched me with the human Sullivan. This will provide no training value for either participant. I require a more suitable opponent. Jake leaned back in his chair and studied the young sword. This was exactly the kind of attitude that caused problems in mixed species units. The pairings are calculated based on skill assessments and training needs. Cadet. The computer selected your partner for specific reasons. With respect, sir, the human lacks the physical capabilities to provide meaningful combat training, Zixthara replied. Her species is known for diplomatic and technical skills, not warrior traditions. I would learn more facing another Saurid or perhaps one of the Ursine heavy infantry cadets. The galaxy is full of opponents who might surprise you, Cadet, Jake said firmly. Overconfidence has ended more military careers than enemy action. You will face your assigned partner, and you will follow all Academy protocols during the match. Zixthara's scaled features showed his displeasure, but he nodded curtly and left the office. Jake made a note in the cadet's file about his request. The young Saurid was skilled, but his arrogance was becoming a serious problem. Perhaps today's sparring session would teach him some humility. Jake walked to the main training floor. where cadets were already warming up for the day's exercises. The arena could accommodate multiple matches, simultaneously with safety barriers and medical monitoring systems keeping watch over every participant. Neural dampening fields prevented lethal strikes while still allowing realistic combat training. He spotted Katie Sullivan stretching in one corner of the arena. At 5 feet 6 inches, she was average height for a human female but seemed tiny compared to most of her alien classmates. Her brown hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her expression was calm and focused as she prepared for training. She wore the standard Academy combat suit that monitored vital signs and provided basic protection. Other cadets gathered in small groups, talking excitedly about the upcoming matches. Word had already spread about the unusual pairing between the imposing sword warrior and the small human. Most aliens viewed it as either a mismatch or an opportunity to see how quickly superior genetics could dominate inferior ones. Jake called the class to attention and began reviewing the day's training objectives. Each sparring match was designed to test specific skills while building cooperation between different species. The Academy's mission was not just to train individual warriors, but to forge bonds that would hold strong when graduates served together in real combat situations. Today's matches will focus on adaptive tactics and species integration, Jake announced to the assembled cadets. You will face opponents with different strengths and weaknesses than your own. Your job is to learn from the experience and find ways to work with diverse allies in the field. He looked directly at Zixthara when he continued. Remember that real enemies will not fight fair or follow rules. They will use every advantage, including surprise tactics and unconventional approaches. Never assume you know what an opponent is capable of based on appearance alone. The cadets moved to their assigned positions as medical drones took their monitoring stations around the arena. Katie Sullivan walked calmly toward the center platform where she would face Zixthara in what most observers expected to be a very brief match. She showed no signs of nervousness or concern about facing an opponent who outweighed her by more than 100 pounds and possessed natural armor that could deflect most hand weapons. Jake watched her final preparations and wondered if today would be the day someone learned an important lesson about making assumptions in combat. The training arena buzzed with excited chatter as cadets from dozens of species gathered around the sparring platforms. Word about the unusual pairing had spread quickly through the academy corridors and mess halls. A 7-foot sword warrior facing off against a human female was the kind of spectacle that drew crowds. Even among seasoned military trainees, Zixthara stood at the edge of his assigned platform, flexing his powerful arms and rolling his shoulders to loosen his muscles. His scaled hide caught the arena lights, giving him an even more intimidating appearance. Several younger cadets from weaker species stepped back instinctively when he turned his reptilian gaze in their direction. This was exactly the kind of reaction he expected from inferior beings. "Look at the size difference," whispered a blue-skinned Andromedan cadet to his companion. "The human barely reaches his chest. This will be over in seconds." A group of insectoid hive-mind cadets clicked their approval in their strange harmonic language. Their translation devices rendered their comments as predictions about how quickly the sword would dominate his smaller opponent. Even cadets from peaceful species gathered to witness what they assumed would be a demonstration of natural selection in action. Katie Sullivan ignored the growing crowd and continued her warm-up routine. She moved through a series of stretches and basic forms that looked simple but required precise muscle control and balance. Her movements were economical and purposeful, showing none of the flashy displays that many species use to intimidate opponents before matches. Lieutenant Commander Martinez watched from the instructor platform as more cadets filed into the arena. He had seen this kind of crowd before when mismatched opponents were scheduled to fight. Most spectators came expecting entertainment rather than education, but sometimes the lessons learned were more valuable than any textbook could provide. "Attention all cadets," Martinez announced through the arena speakers. "Today's sparring exercises are training events, not entertainment. You will observe proper conduct and respect for all participants regardless of species or apparent skill level. Zixthara stepped onto his platform and began his pre-combat ritual. Sword warriors traditionally performed a series of aggressive postures designed to demonstrate their strength and fighting spirit to potential enemies. His display included chest-beating, tail-thrashing, and deep growling vocalizations that echoed through the arena. The performance was impressive and succeeded in making him appear even more formidable. Katie stepped onto the opposite platform without ceremony or ritual display. She simply took her position and waited calmly for the match to begin. Her quiet confidence puzzled some observers who expected to see fear or nervousness when facing such an imposing opponent. A few alien cadets began whispering about human psychology and whether her species lacked proper survival instincts. "Look at her just standing there," commented a massive Ursine heavy infantry cadet. "Does she not understand what she is facing? My people would show more concern when confronting a sword warrior." Martinez activated the safety systems around the platform. Neural dampening fields came online to monitor and limit excessive force while medical scanners began tracking both participants' vital signs. The arena's artificial intelligence would intervene instantly if either cadet was in serious danger of permanent injury. "Combatants will engage in controlled sparring using Academy standard protocols," Martinez announced. "No strikes to vital areas, no grappling above the shoulders, and immediate cessation when either participant signals surrender. Violation of these rules will result in immediate disciplinary action." Zixthara barely listened to the safety briefing. He had heard it hundreds of times and considered most of the restrictions unnecessary. Sword military training involved actual combat with real consequences, not the carefully controlled environment the Academy insisted upon. How could soft species like humans ever learn to be proper warriors if they were never allowed to face genuine danger? The sword cadet studied his opponent and planned his strategy. One powerful strike should be enough to end the match without causing permanent damage to the fragile human. He would aim for her shoulder or upper arm to demonstrate his superior strength while avoiding serious injury. The safety systems would prevent any truly harmful contact anyway. Katie watched Zixthara's preparation with professional interest. She had studied sword combat doctrine during her tactical courses and knew their species relied heavily on overwhelming force and natural advantages. Their fighting style was effective against most opponents, but it had predictable weaknesses that could be exploited by someone with the right training and mindset. She noticed how Zixthara favored his right side and how his tail movements telegraphed his intentions. His stance was aggressive, but it left him slightly off balance when he prepared to strike. Most importantly, she could see the arrogance in his posture and the way he dismissed her as a serious threat. That overconfidence would be his biggest vulnerability. The arena fell quiet as Martinez raised his hand to signal the start of the match. Spectators pressed closer to the safety barriers, eager to witness what they expected would be a quick demonstration of species superiority. Medical drones hovering overhead adjusted their positions to get optimal sensor readings on both participants. "Combatants. Ready?" Martinez called out. Both fighters nodded their acknowledgement, though Zixthara's gesture was more of a dismissive wave than a proper response. Katie remained perfectly still, showing no change in expression or stance. Martinez dropped his hand and activated the combat timer. "Begin." Zixthara immediately launched forward with the explosive speed his species was famous for. His opening move was a classic sword power strike designed to overwhelm opponents through sheer force and aggression. The attack came with tremendous power behind it, enough to seriously injure most Academy cadets, even with safety systems active. Katie moved at the last possible moment, stepping aside with fluid grace that made the massive sword's charge look clumsy by comparison. Her evasion was perfectly timed, using minimal energy while positioning herself at an optimal angle for counterattack. The crowd murmured in surprise as the expected quick victory failed to materialize. Zixthara's momentum carried him past his target, and he had to use his tail for balance to avoid stumbling. His pride stung from the embarrassment of missing such an apparently easy target. The watching cadets began to take more interest in the match as it Became clear the human possessed better reflexes than anyone had anticipated. The sword warrior turned back toward Katie with growing frustration showing in his reptilian features. This was not going according to his expectations. Zixthara snarled in frustration as he turned to face Katie again. The human stood calmly in the center of the platform, showing no signs of fear or exhaustion from evading his powerful opening strike. Her quiet confidence irritated him more than any taunting words could have. How dare this weak creature act as if she belonged on the same combat platform as a sword warrior? The watching crowd had grown larger, as news of the unexpected match spread throughout the academy. Cadets pressed against the safety barriers, talking excitedly about what they had just witnessed. Many had never seen anyone evade a sword power strike so easily. The human's movement had been so smooth and effortless that some observers wondered if the safety systems had somehow interfered with Zixthara's attack. "Did you see how she moved?" whispered an Andromedan cadet to his companion. She made it look simple, but the timing had to be perfect. One fraction of a second too early or too late and she would have been crushed. Katie circled slowly to her, left keeping her eyes locked on Zixthara's center mass rather than his face or limbs. She had learned long ago that an opponent's torso would telegraph their intentions more reliably than their eyes or hands. The big Sored was clearly frustrated by his missed attack, and that frustration would make him predictable. ZYX single quotes THARA decided to abandon subtlety and use his natural advantages to end this embarrassing display. He launched a series of rapid strikes, designed to overwhelm his opponent through sheer volume and power. His scaled fists moved with impressive speed, creating wind currents that ruffled Katie's hair even when the blows missed their target. Each attack came with enough force to shatter bones, but Katie flowed around them like water avoiding a stone. She ducked under high strikes, stepped aside from straight punches, and leaned back from sweeping blows without ever appearing rushed or desperate. Her defensive movements were so efficient that she seemed to be dancing rather than fighting for survival. Lieutenant Commander Martinez watched the exchange with growing interest. He had seen talented fighters before, but Katie's technique was remarkably sophisticated. She was not just avoiding attacks randomly, but positioning herself for optimal counterattacks while using Zixthara's momentum against him. This level of skill suggested training far beyond what most academy cadets received. The Sored warrior's attacks became more wild and desperate as his frustration mounted. Each missed strike damaged his pride more than any physical blow could, hurt his armored hide. He began to abandon the controlled techniques taught at the academy in favor of the brutal methods used in actual Sored combat. The safety protocols were designed to prevent serious injuries, but they could not protect against techniques that violated academy rules entirely. Katie noticed the change in her opponent's fighting style immediately. Zixthara was no longer following the sparring guidelines that kept academy training safe. His strikes now carried lethal intent, and his movements showed he was willing to cause permanent damage to achieve victory. The neural dampening fields would prevent the worst outcomes, but she could still be seriously injured if one of his full power attacks connected. The crowd sensed the shift in the match's tone as well. What had begun as an entertaining mismatch was becoming something much more serious. Several instructors moved closer to the platform, ready to intervene if the situation got completely out of hand. Medical drones adjusted their positions and began charging their emergency intervention systems. Zixthara's next attack was a devastating overhead strike that would have crushed a normal opponent even with safety systems active. He put his full body weight behind the blow, abandoning all pretense of following academy protocols. His scaled fist descended toward Katie's head with enough force to cave in the skull of most species. Katie saw the attack coming long before it reached her. Zixthara's entire body telegraphed the movement, and his emotional state made his technique sloppy and predictable. Instead of simply evading as she had done before, she decided it was time to end the match before someone got seriously hurt. As the massive fist descended toward her, Katie stepped forward instead of back. The movement surprised everyone watching, including Zixthara, who had expected her to retreat as she had been doing throughout the fight. Her forward step put her inside his reach, where his longer arms became a disadvantage, rather than an asset. Katie's hands moved with practiced precision as she caught Zixthara's extended arm at the wrist and elbow. Her grip was firm but not painful, at first giving him a chance to recognize what was happening and withdraw his attack. For a split second, the massive Saurid could have stepped back and returned to proper sparring protocol. Instead, Zixthara tried to power through her grip using his superior strength to complete his devastating strike. He pushed forward with all his might, determined to prove that raw power could overcome any technique. His pride would not allow him to be stopped by a creature he considered genetically inferior. That decision sealed his fate. As Zixthara committed his full strength to the downward strike, Katie used his own momentum and body weight against him. She pivoted smoothly while maintaining her grip on his arm, creating a lever system that focused all his power on the weakest point of his extended limb. The technique was flawless and efficient, requiring minimal strength from Katie while using Zixthara's own force to achieve maximum effect. Physics and leverage accomplished what raw power could not, as the Saurid's elbow joint was forced beyond its natural range of motion by his own attack. The sharp crack of breaking bone echoed through the suddenly silent arena like a gunshot. Zixthara's roar of pain and shock drowned out all other sounds as he collapsed to his knees, clutching his clearly broken arm. His scaled face showed complete disbelief that such a thing was even possible. Katie released her grip and stepped back calmly as medical alarms began sounding throughout the arena. She showed no satisfaction or remorse at her opponent's injury, only the professional composure of someone who had completed a necessary task. The match was over, and she had defended herself using appropriate force against an opponent who had abandoned all safety protocols. Emergency medical drones swarmed the platform as the neural dampening system activated full medical protocols. The arena's artificial intelligence had recorded every moment of the fight and would clearly show that Katie had acted in self-defense against an opponent who was attempting to cause serious injury. The arena fell into complete silence except for Zixthara's groans of pain and the humming of medical drones rushing to treat his injured arm. Every alien cadet stared in stunned disbelief at the scene before them. The massive Saurid warrior, who had entered the match with supreme confidence, now knelt on the platform clutching his clearly broken elbow, while the small human stood calmly nearby. Medical technicians swarmed around Zixthara using portable scanners to assess the damage to his arm. The break was clean but severe, with multiple fractures in the elbow joint that would require surgery to repair properly. Pain medication flowed through injectors attached to his neck, while stabilization foam hardened around the injured limb to prevent further damage. Katie stepped off the platform and walked toward the equipment storage area to return her practice gear. She moved with the same calm efficiency she had shown throughout the match, displaying no emotion about what had just occurred. Several alien cadets stepped aside as she passed, unsure how to react to someone who had just broken the arm of one of the Academy's most feared fighters. Lieutenant Commander Martinez jumped down from the instructor platform and approached Katie as she placed her training equipment in its proper storage location. His expression was serious but not angry as he gestured for her to follow him away from the crowd of watching cadets. "Sullivan, report to my office immediately," Martinez said in a voice that carried clearly across the arena. "The rest of you, return to your quarters. Training is suspended for the remainder of the day while we investigate this incident." The crowd of alien cadets dispersed slowly, with many casting nervous glances back at Katie as she walked beside the instructor. Word of what had happened would spread quickly through the Academy and beyond. A human breaking a Saurid's arm in single combat was the kind of story that would reach every corner of the galaxy within hours. In his office, Martinez activated the privacy screens and gestured for Katie to take a seat. He pulled up the complete recording of the sparring match on his main display, showing every angle captured by the arena's monitoring systems. The footage clearly documented how the fight had progressed and why Katie had been forced to use potentially harmful techniques. The Academy's artificial intelligence has already analyzed the incident, Martinez said as he reviewed the data. Cadet Zixthara violated multiple safety protocols when he attempted a full-power strike with clear intent to cause serious injury. Your response was measured and appropriate given the threat level he presented. Katie nodded but remained silent. She had learned long ago that explaining her actions was less important than letting the facts speak for themselves. The recording would show exactly what had happened and why she had been forced to defend herself against an opponent who had abandoned all restraint. Martinez studied her personnel file on his secondary screen. Most of the information was standard. Academy data showing her test scores, training progress, and disciplinary record, which was spotless. But buried deeper in the file were details about her background that most instructors never bothered to examine. Your family has an interesting military history, Sullivan, Martinez said as he scrolled through the classified sections of her file. Your grandfather served with Earth's Special Operations Division during the Centauri Border Wars. Your father was a combat instructor at the Terran Military Academy before joining the diplomatic corps. Your mother holds advanced certifications in 17 different martial arts disciplines. Katie's expression remained neutral, but Martinez could see recognition in her eyes. Her background was not something she discussed with other cadets who already viewed humans as weak compared to their own species. Being the daughter of elite military personnel would only increase the attention she preferred to avoid. The Academy medical staff is treating this as a training accident, Martinez continued. Zixthura's injuries are serious but not permanent. He will make a full recovery, though his pride may take longer to heal than his elbow. The office door chimed, and Martinez looked up to see Admiral Chun entering with 2 security officers. The Admiral was the Academy's commandant and one of the few humans to hold high rank in the galactic military hierarchy. Her presence meant this incident would receive attention from the highest levels of command. Commander Martinez, I need to speak with Cadet Sullivan immediately, Admiral Chun said as she took a seat behind the instructor's desk. This incident has already been reported to Fleet Headquarters and several alien governments are demanding explanations about human combat capabilities. Martinez gathered his files and left the office, giving the Admiral privacy for what was clearly going to be a sensitive conversation. Katie remained seated waiting for Admiral Chun to speak first. She had never met the Academy's commandant personally, but knew her reputation as one of the most respected military leaders in human space. Sullivan, your actions today have created a significant political situation, Admiral Chun said as she activated additional security measures around the office. Within the past hour, I have received communications from the Saurid Imperium, the Andromedan Federation, and 6 other major powers, demanding to know how a human cadet was able to defeat one of their warriors so easily. The Admiral pulled up a galactic news feed showing headlines about the incident already appearing on networks throughout known space. Most reports focused on the shocking nature of a human defeating a Saurid in combat, but some included speculation about hidden human military capabilities. Earth's government has been deliberately understating our military potential for decades, Admiral Chun continued. We found it safer to be seen as a diplomatic species rather than a warrior culture. But your demonstration today may force us to reveal more about human capabilities than we intended. Katie finally spoke for the first time since entering the office. I followed proper self-defense protocols, Admiral. When faced with a potentially lethal attack, I used minimal force necessary to neutralize the threat. Admiral Chun smiled slightly at the textbook response. I am not criticizing your actions, Sullivan. You performed exactly as trained and prevented serious injury to yourself, but you also revealed that humans are far more dangerous than most species realize. The Admiral stood and walked to the window overlooking the main Academy complex. Hundreds of alien cadets were visible in the courtyards and training areas representing dozens of species from across the galaxy. The incident today would change how all of them viewed their human classmates. Prepare yourself, Sullivan, Admiral Chun said without turning around. Your quiet Academy career just ended. Tomorrow you will be the most famous human cadet in the galaxy. 3 weeks after the Sparring incident, Katie Sullivan found herself sitting in a conference room surrounded by military officers from 12 different species. The news of her match with Zixtara had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had anticipated, and now representatives from major alien governments wanted to understand how humans had developed such effective combat techniques. The Saurid representative was a grizzled general with battle scars covering his scaled hide. He leaned forward in his chair, studying Katie with intense curiosity rather than the anger she had expected. "Young human, your technique was flawless. Our combat analysts have reviewed the recording hundreds of times and still cannot fully understand how you generated such leverage with minimal physical strength." Katie remained composed under the scrutiny of so many high-ranking officers. Admiral Chun had prepared her for these meetings, explaining that Earth's diplomatic position required careful handling of the situation. Too much information could make other species view humans as a threat, while too little might invite challenges from aggressive cultures. "My training emphasized efficiency over raw power," Katie replied carefully. "Human military doctrine focuses on using an opponent's strength against them rather than trying to match their physical capabilities." A tall Andromedan admiral gestured with one of her forearms as she spoke. "This philosophy is fascinating, but it raises questions about your species' true military potential. If one human cadet can defeat our finest warriors, what capabilities do your elite forces possess?" The question hung in the air as the alien officers waited for Katie's response. She could see Admiral Chun watching carefully from her position at the head of the table. Earth's government had spent decades cultivating the image of humans as peaceful diplomats and technicians rather than warriors. This meeting could change that perception forever. "Human military training varies widely based on individual aptitude and family tradition," Katie said after a moment of consideration. "Some families have specialized in combat disciplines for many generations, while others focus on engineering or diplomatic skills." Meanwhile, in the Academy Medical Bay, Zixtara was undergoing his final rehabilitation session. The surgery to repair his elbow had been successful, but the psychological impact of his defeat was proving harder to heal. His species counselor was an elderly Saurid psychologist who specialized in helping warriors cope with unexpected setbacks. "Your pride was your weakness, young warrior," the counselor explained patiently. "You entered that match believing victory was assured because of your physical advantages. When faced with superior technique and training, your overconfidence became a liability." Zixtara flexed his repaired arm, testing its range of motion. The joint worked perfectly, but he would always remember the moment when his own strength had been turned against him. "I have studied the recording of our match every day since my injury. The human's movements were like nothing taught in our warrior schools." The counselor nodded approvingly. "And what have you learned from this study?" "That strength without wisdom is meaningless," Zixtara replied slowly. "The human never tried to match my power, but instead used precision and timing to defeat me. She fought with her mind as much as her body." Back in the conference room, the alien representatives were asking increasingly detailed questions about human combat training. Katie answered as honestly as possible while avoiding information that might compromise Earth's security. She explained basic principles of martial arts and military tactics without revealing the more advanced techniques used by special forces units. The Ursine Heavy infantry commander was particularly interested in human training methods. His species relied on overwhelming physical power in combat, but he could see the value of more sophisticated approaches. "Would your government consider exchanging military instructors with our forces? We could learn much from each other." Admiral Chun stepped in before Katie could respond. "Earth is always interested in military cooperation with our galactic allies. However, any formal exchange programs would need to be negotiated at the governmental level rather than through individual cadets." The meeting continued for several hours with each species, a representative asking questions about different aspects of human military capabilities. Katie found herself serving as an unofficial ambassador for her entire species while trying to maintain the careful balance between openness and security that Earth's position required. After the alien officers finally departed, Admiral Chun remained in the conference room with Katie. The older woman looked tired from managing the diplomatic complexities that had emerged from a single training accident. You handled that well, Sullivan. Walking the line between honesty and discretion is never easy. Katie nodded, but her expression showed concern about the broader implications of her actions. Admiral, what happens now? Will this change how other species view humans in the galactic community? Change is inevitable, Admiral Chun replied thoughtfully. For decades we have been content to remain in the background, letting other species handle military matters while we focused on trade and diplomacy. But your demonstration has shown that humans can compete with the galaxy's finest warriors when necessary. Over the following months, the effects of the Sparring incident continued to ripple through galactic society. Military academies across known space began studying human combat techniques and requesting access to Earth's training programs. Applications from human candidates to elite military units increased dramatically as other species recognized the value of human tactical thinking. Katie graduated from the academy with highest honors and received assignment to the prestigious Galactic Defense Force Special Operations Unit. Her quiet competence and professional demeanor had impressed instructors from multiple species, who recognized that effective leadership came in many forms. Zixthara also graduated, though his perspective had changed completely from his first day at the academy. He requested assignment to a mixed species unit where he could continue learning from allies with different approaches to warfare. His broken arm had healed, but the lesson it taught him would last forever. The sparring match that began as a simple training exercise had become a turning point in how the galaxy viewed human potential. Earth's children were no longer seen as weak diplomats who needed protection from stronger species, but as valuable allies, whose unique skills complemented traditional military thinking. Lieutenant Katie Sullivan stood on the bridge of her first starship assignment, watching alien crew members work together with the same cooperation she had learned at the academy. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but she had proven that strength came in many forms and that assumptions about any species' capabilities were made at their own peril.